Hey everyone, it's Christos here, aka the FRAG, and say hello to my little friend. This is R2D2. I didn't know, but R2D2 actually plays bass. Did you know that? He actually plays bass. So when he's not trying to bring up blueprints of the Death Star to destroy the evil Empire, he's actually playing bass. You learnt this here today. Okay, let's put him down because he's got to restore freedom to the galaxy with the Jedi Knights. But today I'm going to review my upgraded Fender Player Series jazz bass. So what I'll do in the description below, I'll post the link to my original video that I uploaded on YouTube when I reviewed this beauty in all its stock glory. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually review it since I've done modifications and upgrades. But before we get started, please hit like, subscribe. If you want to leave comments, leave comments. If you want to agree with me, fantastic. If you want to disagree with me, fantastic. Or disagree with anyone else's comments, fantastic. This is a free world, but please do it in a way that's dignified and respectful towards others. So, this is my Fender Player Series jazz bass in buttercream and in a maple fretboard. So before I actually go over the modifications, I'll just quickly run through the specs again for those of you that may not be too familiar with these models. So you've got an alder body, you've got two master volumes, one for the neck pickup and one for the bridge, and then you've got a master tone. Then you've got your standard stock bridge, which I've replaced, but I'll go through that. You've got 20 medium jumbo frets, you've got a 34-inch scale, maple fingerboard and neck, a 9.5-inch radius fretboard. So what that means is basically when you start from a center point and move up 9.5 inches and then draw a circle around that, the curvature of that circle equates to the curvature of the fretboard. You've got vintage open tuners. I'll just take the strap off so you can see that. You've got the vintage open tuners and you've got a very nice Fender F plate there as well. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the specs and I will do some sound samples. Okay, so I'm going to do some sound samples. So what I've done, and I've done a few things too. So firstly, let me start from the bottom and work my way up. I've replaced the standard vintage bridge with a Hipshot Kickass bridge, and I love it. I love it because, you know, I like the Babbage bridge and also the Godot bridge as well, and also the Fender High Mass bridge as well. So it is a high mass bridge. In other words, it's a lot more denser than the basic steel curved material of the vintage bridge. The thing I love about the Hipshot above any other bridge is that if you look closely, you can see the strings are resting on brass bridge saddles. And there's a little screw just in front of them that allows you to move the actual brass bridge saddle left or right. So that way you can either space the strings further apart or bring them together. Or, you know, if let's say one of the strings is not really crossing over the magnetic poles in the pickups, it allows you more freedom, whilst all the other bridges that I've mentioned don't offer you that. They are high mass bridge, but this is the one that really adds, you know, that extra bit of benefit for me. It's a direct replacement, so that the 5 screw holes fit straight over the screw holes in the Fender body. My recommendation, folks, is that use the original screws that came with the original vintage bridge from the Fender factory. Yeah, so I recommend that you use that, because otherwise if you use the screws from the Hipshot, they are a little bit thicker and it can alter the thread patterns in the wood. What I've also done is I've got a set of Seymour Duncan Quarter Pound single coils, and they're rated at around 13 DC in terms of resistance on my multimeter. And the way that you can test that is you just plug in your lead, and on the other side of the lead, using the red or and the black tip, just connect that to the tip of the lead, and you'll see on the lead there's a little black marker. Each pin from your multimeter needs to be on either side, and then you'll be able to, once you set it to the 20k resistance, you'll be able to measure the resistance of your pickups, or the DC resistance. So they're both at about 13, which is pretty strong considering when I tested my multimeter against the Fender stock pickups, it was around 6.5, so it's actually twice as much. What I did find, and still being a novice to the bass, is that once you turn volumes up at full, both pickups halve in their impedance. So where it's 13 each, the combined resistance for the pickups is around 6.5, and I believe is that the volume for a Fender is wired in parallel. So I've got the Seymour Duncan Quarter Pounds. Underneath here, I've got an Obsidian wire wiring kit for a jazz bass. It's called the JB250. And if you haven't heard of them, Obsidian Wire is a New Zealand company that allows you to remove all the stock potentiometers, other wiring and so forth, and insert a unit that all you do is just insert the pickup wires into this spring-loaded cavity, and it allows you to do that without using any solder. And then if I ever want to change my pickups, there's a little piece there that I just press down, take the wire out, insert the new wire of the new pickup, and I'm good to go. But what I'll do is I'll put a link to Obsidian Wire in the description below, and that way you folks can have a look at it as well. I then changed the small knob here, the tone knob, to the larger knob. So I've actually got 3 large knobs now, and I like it. I like the size of those knobs. They look more consistent having 3 of them. You'll see here I've also changed the strap holders. I've put black Dunlop, and I think that I was tossing up between chrome and black, but I actually like black because it actually goes with the black knobs and also the black pickup, sort of like black and yellow, black and yellow. And what I've done also is I've changed the stock strings. I've actually got a set of Labella deep torque and bass 45 to 105. These are silky smooth. They are flat wound stainless steel. They're not as punchy as I thought they would be. On my other Fender Play Series Precision bass, I've got a set of Fender flat wound stainless steel strings, and they're pretty punchy. They are. They're not cheap. These ones sent me back about $88, $82 on Amazon Australia, but if I were to buy these in the store, they'd be around $120. So they're not cheap, but they feel so smooth. Sometimes I find that I'm overshooting the fret. And also, I forgot to mention, I changed the string tree. You see how it's a nice chrome version. Traditionally, the Fender string trees are sort of like a brushed alloy metal or something like that. The beauty about this one is that there's grooves underneath the string tree, so that way the strings fit straight through, whilst with the Fender one it's just purely flat, and sometimes the strings have a tendency of moving a bit outward depending on how they're set up, whilst this one's actually got grooves underneath and the string goes straight through, and it's nice and flat. So that's pretty much all the customization that I've done. And right now it plays fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play different sound samples and play along to one of my favorite bass lines, Kiss's Sure Know Something, and I'll play around with the different volume and tone options and see how we go. Okay, and I'm just going through my Rumble 25, and I've got pretty much everything at 12 o'clock except for bass, which I've got at around 2 o'clock. So here we go. This is with volume and tone all at full. Okay, then what I'll do is I'll turn the bridge volume all the way down, so I'm just using the neck, and then you'll see how it sounds. And also, the great thing about these pickups is because they're much more powerful in terms of DC resistance than the normal Fender stock pickups, you don't get that 60 cycle humming that you get traditionally with Fender jazz basses or jazz basses in general. Because it's a much more stronger, more powerful pickup, it can hold that signal much better without causing the hum of weaker pickups. So this is just the neck pickup at full volume and the tone at full. So then what I'll do is I'll ease off the neck pickup, and now I'm only using the bridge pickup at full volume, and again I've got full tone. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll have both neck and bridge pickup at full, and I'll just turn the tone all the way back. And now what I'll do is I'll set the tone at half. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll back off the bridge pickup, so I'm just using the neck pickup with no tone at all. And then what I'll do is I'll set the tone with the neck pickup only at halfway. And then what I'll do is I'll set the bridge pickup with no tone at all. And then what I'll do is I'll turn now the tone at about halfway. So that gives you an understanding of what the tonal capability, and to be honest with you, what I found is that the actual Fender pickups combined with the obsidian wire add so much more tonality, depth, punch. You can really cut through the mix on this bass, considering it's not really designed for your harder rock music. That's where a lot of people lean towards the precision bass in that regard, because you've got the humbucker right in the sweet spot, the middle part of the body. But as I mentioned before, and again, I'm still a novice to this, is that each pickup is rated around 13 point something DC in terms of resistance, which is pretty hot. The Fender pickups each were rated around 6.5, but then when I turned the volume full, when I tested my multimeter on my guitar lead, they both dropped down to 3 point something, about half. But then when I just roll back the volume completely on one, the other one returned to its normal full DC resistance. So it seems like this is a functionality, and I've read on a few different posts that the volume here is set in parallel for a jazz bass. So when you're combining both, it actually drops the DC resistance to half. But what I've actually found is a sweet spot in terms of volume, where I've got the volume of the neck at full, and then I roll back the volume of the bridge pickup where it's pointing the lead, and when I attach my multimeter to the tip of the lead, it actually jumps from around 6.5 to about 11 point something. So I've still got a noticeable volume of the bridge, but also full volume of the neck, and I find that is really my sweet spot in terms of tone, with the tone on full. And this is what it sounds like from my end. I'll do it again. So you get that really nice, warm, rich sound that you can really cut through the mix. And don't forget, because these are flat wounds, they're not going to be as punchy as, let's say, a round wound string, especially a round wound stainless steel string. So that's pretty much it from my end. And you know what? It's been an absolute blast trying to put this together in the way that it's a nice project for me, and it really is now customized to my specific liking. So I urge you folks out there, if you do buy a guitar like this, don't be afraid to mod it. Don't be afraid to to work on it. And the great thing is that the Player Series here in Australia, I got this for 950 Australian dollars, which when you compare that to the new Player Plus series, they're retailing for around that sort of anywhere between the 1700 Australian dollars here. And really great basses. I've tried them, especially the 12-inch radius, really nice. And speaking of radius, the higher the radius, the flatter the fretboard, which is great, because if you think about it, as I said, if you go from 9.5 inches from a dot, and then you start going 12 inches, you're actually going higher. And then when you draw the pattern of that circle, it's actually flatter, because a smaller circle, let's say like 7.25 inch, is going to be more rounded. So if you're looking down that angle of the fretboard, the lower the inch radius, the more that the fretboard is curved, because you're dealing with the curvature of a smaller circle as opposed to a larger circle, which is going to be a lot more flatter. So what that means is that if you're looking down the fretboard, as I just showed you now, if you've got the strings and you're bending them, they sometimes can make contact with the curvature of the fretboard. So imagine if the fretboard's really curved and then you're bending a string, it actually touches the middle part of the fretboard, which is more curved. It can actually drown out the note. Whilst with a 12-inch, it's pretty much flat. So it's really great for bending notes and sustaining notes as well. Another thing I will say as well is there's a little scientific thing called a witness point. And when you change your strings, if you look at the string that rests on the brass bridge saddle, sometimes what happens is that the string doesn't actually sit flat. And then by pressing the string down, doesn't have to be too hard, but just a few bounces, what it does is it allows the string to rest much more flatter on the bridge saddle. And the benefit with that is, theoretically, it allows you to achieve better intonation and tuning stability. And speaking of intonation, what I would recommend is, when you do buy the Hipshot bridge, line it up to the bridge saddles of the Fender vintage bridge, because when this guitar comes from the factory, it's perfectly set up to the Fender specifications. And that's what happened with me, is that the intonation was spot on. And that is, once you hit the 12th fret, you're starting a new octave. Okay, 12 frets, octave, because you're taking into account your flats and sharps and not just your main notes. So the F here, you want it to be in tune with the F here. If this is flat, you move the bridge saddle forward. If it's sharp, you move it back. So what I did was I took my my Kickass bridge, my Hipshot bridge, and aligned it to the bridge saddles of the Fender stock bridge. So then when it came time to replacing it, I only did very marginal, if any at all, fine tuning to achieve perfect intonation. Otherwise, if you just put the Hipshot Kickass bridge on, then you'll have to start from scratch, and it can be tedious, like if you have to unwind the strings, use your screwdriver to bring the bridge saddle back and forth, whilst you're better off doing it, just laying the Kickass bridge right next to the vintage bridge, and then lining up the tips of the bridge saddles with the Fender bridge, and then you'll save yourself a lot of time. But overall, I'm very impressed with this bass guitar. I love it. I love the color. I love the way it plays, the way it feels, the way it sounds. One thing I would recommend is, when you do buy this, you may want to get some lemon oil and dab it on a cloth and just rub it on each side of the fret, because I what I found was they were really dirty. Maybe the fret wire's just been sitting in the factory and so forth, but now there's no gunk on the sides of the frets, and that really makes it for much easier bending and so forth. What I did also find is that the 13th, 14th and 18th fret was sitting proud, and so when I was hitting the D note here, it was really buzzing. It's buzzing just a tiny bit, but in comparison it was really buzzing. And what I did find is that the actual neck doesn't sort of curve or bow downwards. It actually bows and then sort of comes up a little bit here, which makes these frets sit a bit proud. And what I did was, with a fret file, was just bring down the frets using a fret rocker as well, to make sure that when the fret rocker rests against 3 frets, it's flat. If the fret rocker is actually tilting back and forth, then that fret needs to be filed down. And it's just a minuscule height above the normal frets can be the difference between a string buzzing and a string ringing out for ages. But right now it just sounds really nice, you know. Or if I play, you know, Toto's Hold the Line. You know, it sounds much better. So, you know, that's, and look, at the end of the day, I don't expect the level of quality control on something like a Fender Player Series bass as opposed to something like a Warwick, you know, that are made in Germany. Obviously you're paying the premium. The great thing is that this particular bass, the frets have been rounded off really nice. My precision bass, some of them are a bit sharp, but they're tolerable. But this is, you know, in comparison, for the money that you pay for, you are getting a very good value bass, and it is the Fender brand at the same time. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you've had a great, safe and awesome Christmas. Like me, you've probably overeaten and you're burning off a lot of festive fat. So enjoy yourselves, take it easy, be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and please hit like, subscribe, and yeah, keep an eye out, because I'm always posting new videos. And thank you so much for your comments. You know, you guys have been really good to me, and something's just fallen over. Okay, so take it easy. God bless you all, and I'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.